Just continuing on with our plumbing kit installation. In the previous segment we looked at connecting the plumbing kit to the tankless water heater. Now we're going to look at the connections to the air handler itself. So number one, in its simplest, on the inlet we have an air vent that will accept the hot water coming in from the tankless water heater. So we're going to use one of our 11 gaskets again that comes in the kit in a pack like this, and again it will depend or vary depending on the type of kit you're using, but take one of those gaskets on the nipple, connect that and tighten it up and you're done. The only caveat to that is if you're using a Navien A2 model and you want to do domestic hot water recirculation. Okay, so you have the Navien, has a pump inside, it'll come on to do domestic hot water recirculation. So the pump comes on, sends out water out of the outlet fitting. But if you're trying to recirculate to the upstairs master bedroom on the 3rd floor, that's a long way, a lot of run of pipe, a lot of elbows, a lot of restriction. If this is right next to the unit in the mechanical room, it might be easier, there might be less pressure drop for the water to go through here and then go back, than going to the domestic. So you're short-circuiting your domestic hot water recirculation. Not a big deal in the winter because we've got the air handler anyway, but if you are in the summer and you're running your cooling and the Navien wants to do some domestic hot water recirculation, so the pump comes on, pushes hot water, and that decides to go through this coil. At the same time on the evaporator coil we're trying to do cooling. Now you've got heating versus cooling. You're going to notice your cooling comes on but it's not working properly, and that your Navien is running continuously when the cooling is on. That's what that scenario is. The other could be if you're running a G-call continuously, like we have as code in British Columbia. So the fan is running continuously, your thermostat's not calling for heat, it's just calling for the fan, but the Navien has come on to do some domestic hot water recirculation. Inadvertently water is coming through the coil here and going back because it's less pressure drop and it's closer. Then you're going to just have the G call, but you've got heat now coming, and so even though you don't have a heating call in your thermostat, your house is getting warmer. So those are the two scenarios. So we need to avoid that. So iFLOW has introduced a two-way valve, and this two-way valve will close when the Navien is doing its domestic hot water recirculation. So the Navien comes on to do domestic hot water recirculation, not heating. Domestic hot water recirculation, the pump internally comes on and it starts to push out, push out. It's going to try and push through here because this is the shortest path, but the two-way valve is closed, so it can't. So then it has to push to the faucets. So this again, when you're using the Navien A2 model and you want recirculation, we have a two-way valve to prevent inadvertent flows through the air handler when we're not using it. So we have a two-way valve. This is the actual ball valve, and this is the motor assembly that connects to the ball valve. So there's just 2 pins, and this is, if it's horizontal it's open, if it's perpendicular to the valve body it is closed, and that then just connects to the valve. And then there's a little ring that will bring them together. So easy enough. So all to say, this is an option on the inlet side. If we are running with that, we could take our air vent off. Now we're going to use the same O-ring. Same O-ring. Now we're going to put this valve on instead first. Okay. And now we're going to go with another O-ring and with the air vent on top of that. In terms of positioning, this is the position for the valve. Put it on. The installation of the cover slides under this front lip and then screws in, so you're not going to have any interference with the front cover on the unit, so that's not a problem. And you'll be able to then have the two-way valve operating. Okay, so that is one option. Now, on the outlet side, so let's look at the outlet. On the outlet, you can also have two options. Our main kit, our 60 EPKITA, so Easy Plumbing Kit version A, EPKITA, we include a pump. So we're going to put one of our gaskets. We're going to secure that on. And then we'll tighten all this up in a moment. And then we have our pump. So then we supply a Grundfos 1558 3-speed pump. Right? So 3-speed pump, which should always be set to 3rd speed. Not to minimum, not to medium, but 3rd speed. We will control the speed of that pump. In terms of directional, on the face, usually the Grundfos is pointing up in the direction of flow. There is also a marker, right? You see this white arrow that shows you the direction of the impeller. So it's wanting to take the water and spin it that way. So it's pushing up. And thirdly, on the back, you have a directional, an arrow that says this way. So in this is pointing up, Grundfos is up, arrow is up. So this is the direction of the pump. So again, we take one of our heavy, larger washers. We'll put that on top, and then we're going to put it in and secure pump. So that is the way the pump connects to the iFLOW. So we have our air vent on the inlet, we have our two-way valve if you're using the 60 EPK NA2 for the Navien A2, which includes this two-way valve and this pump. This is how that would work, and then we connect on the top of the pump to our outlet. So on the top of the pump, you have the option of going to copper, so a sweat connection, or you go with a PEX connection. So you have your nut. If you want PEX, then just choose the PEX adapter. The large gasket goes in, and then large gasket, and connect through it. So and then we're going to tighten all these up. If you wanted copper, then you just take that PEX adapter out and put the copper adapter in and then secure it. And then you can sweat. Now, if you're going to be sweating, of course you're going to do this outside of the unit. You're not going to, because this is all plastic housing and that O-ring will melt, of course. So you braze you solder this outside first to your copper pipe, and then you you put the fitting over top. So that is one configuration. The other could be If you're using a Navien A2 model and you have a pump inside the Navien that you want to use for space heating, then you can do that. But as soon as you do that, you don't have recirculation for domestic. Right? The pump inside the Navien can be used for either domestic hot water recirculation, in which case we need a secondary pump for the space heating, or you can use the pump inside the Navien for space heating, and then it does not do domestic recirculation anymore. It's one or the other. It can't do both at the same time. So if we are using the Navien internal pump, then we don't have this either. We don't have this two-way valve, so we just have our air vent, and then we would have just a regular our expansion tank, a regular connection, and then this would go back to the Navien for reheating. So again, we would use our O-ring, and just connect as such. So again, there are a few different configurations depending on which kit you're using and what features you're trying to use.